Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. In a courtroom so tense you could hear a pin drop, the silence was shattered by a woman's voice recounting what she says happened behind closed doors in music mogul Diddy's infamous dark room. Cassie Ventura's testimony wasn't just disturbing. It was horrifying. Step by step, she described a ritualistic system of abuse so specific and depraved that even seasoned reporters were shaken. Baby oil, man milk, urination, and alleged forced acts during her menstrual cycle. This wasn't just wild behavior. This sounded like organized torment. But as she laid bare the details, Diddy sat across from her, hands trembling, visibly shaken, and eventually he broke down. He screamed. Today, we're breaking down everything Cassie said under oath, how the courtroom reacted, and why her testimony may be the final nail in the coffin of one of hip-hop's most powerful figures. This is what happens when the darkest secrets are dragged into the light. As Cassie Ventura slowly made her way to the witness stand, the entire courtroom stiffened. She wasn't just another accuser. She was the one who opened Pandora's box, the one whose lawsuit lit the match. And now, 8 months pregnant, wearing a gray maternity dress with a high collar, her eyes fixed straight ahead, she looked less like a pop star and more like a witness to war. The prosecution started gently. They asked how she met Diddy, how she got signed, how the relationship evolved, but the softness evaporated quickly. What followed was a brutal dive into one of the most disturbing courtroom testimonies the music industry has ever heard. Cassie began detailing what she described as a ritual. It wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. She claimed Diddy ran his freak-offs like a film director, precise, choreographed, and fully produced. The lights were dimmed just so. Music was selected ahead of time. Scented oils were used. Even the towels were laid out methodically, as if the bedroom was a soundstage. He was always producing, Cassie said. Even in the worst moments, it was like he needed control over every second. The courtroom was silent. Diddy didn't look up. She described how he would invite male escorts into their private space, not for himself, but to participate with her while he sat and watched. It wasn't always consensual, she said, but more disturbing was how it was structured. She broke it down into 4 steps. Step 1. Descriptive foreplay. She was allegedly required to speak aloud everything that was happening, narrating it in real time like a graphic audiobook. He would sit in the corner and make me describe what I saw, what I felt, what I thought, she testified. He wanted every detail. There was a ripple in the courtroom as the judge reminded everyone that phones were not allowed. A juror wiped their eyes. Cassie took a breath. Then she revealed that she was often under the influence during these sessions. Substances provided by Diddy himself, whether alcohol, weed, or pills, it dulled her senses just enough to let her go through the motions. But she remembered everything. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how to say no to someone who had my entire life in his hands. She was then asked what happened if she refused. Her reply, "He told me I was boring. He said, if you don't do it, someone else will." That quote hung in the air. For many in that courtroom, including Diddy's own family, it was the first time they had heard the abuse described this way from the inside out, and they weren't ready for what came next. When the prosecutor prompted Cassie to elaborate on step 2, the touching phase, she visibly clenched her hands together in her lap. What she described next made headlines before she even left the courtroom. Cassie said Diddy had an obsession with sheen, specifically with how skin looked when it was glistening under low light. The prosecution backed this up by referencing evidence obtained during the federal raid of Diddy's property. Over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. It was, in the prosecutor's words, enough to fill an aisle at a pharmacy. Cassie explained that Diddy would stop the freak-offs every 5 minutes to reapply oil, not just to her, but to the male escort too. He wanted us to look like we were wrapped in cellophane, she said. Every inch of our skin had to shine. He would scream if we looked dry. At first, the courtroom laughed nervously, but the laughter died when Cassie revealed the purpose of all that oil. It wasn't just visual, it was to dehumanize. When you're covered in oil, you're not a person anymore," she said. "You're an object." Her voice cracked, but she didn't break. She described how she would slide on the sheets, unable to get traction. Sometimes she would fall. Diddy would laugh. Other times he would berate her. He called her names, said she was ruining the performance. According to her, it wasn't about sex. It was about power, control, and submission. He wanted to own the image. He wanted to direct the scene. If I did something off script, he'd stop everything and start again. She also mentioned hidden cameras. "There were times I saw little red lights blinking. I don't know where the footage went. I just know he kept everything." Prosecutors have yet to confirm whether any footage was recovered, but they nodded as if it was in progress. Her testimony became even more chilling when she mentioned the involvement of Diddy's staff. She alleged that assistants would come into the room mid-session, not to stop anything, but to bring in towels, reapply oil, or hand off recording equipment. "Nobody said anything," she said. "They all acted like it was normal." Diddy stared down at his lap, hands shaking. Even the judge looked rattled. But Cassie wasn't finished. What came next turned the courtroom upside down. By the time Cassie reached step 3 and step 4, the courtroom had gone completely still. She adjusted her mic and said, "This part I still try to forget." Step 3 was what she called oral servitude. She admitted that she would try to rush through it, not out of disrespect, but because she wanted it to end as quickly as possible. "I wasn't there because I wanted to be," she said. "I was there because I thought if I didn't do it, he'd find someone else." She was visibly trembling as she described how Diddy would often film her and the escort, providing off-screen direction. "He would sit there like a film director," she said. "He'd say, 'Slower, more eye contact, talk to him,' like I was acting in some grotesque porno he wrote in his mind." Step 4, the intercourse, wasn't always direct. Sometimes Diddy would simply watch. Other times he would join. But it depended, Cassie said, on how comfortable he was with the escort. If he trusted the guy, he'd participate. If not, he just sat there, playing God. But what shocked the courtroom wasn't just what happened during the acts. It was what happened afterward. Cassie testified that Diddy would demand she take the male escort's semen and rub it on his chest and nipples. He liked it, she said through tears. He said it made him feel powerful. At that moment, a reporter gasped audibly. A juror looked visibly ill. The judge called a 5-minute recess. Diddy sat stone-faced but twitching, his foot bouncing so fast it blurred. When the court reconvened, Cassie revealed something even darker. She testified that on multiple occasions she was forced to participate in these rituals during her period. There were no breaks. She was not allowed to opt out. And when things got messy, bloody even, Diddy had staff come in with extra linens. "It was like I wasn't even a person," she said, "just something he could use whenever the mood struck." She told the court about an incident involving a male escort allegedly urinating on her while she lay frozen on the floor, intoxicated. "There were 2 men standing over me. I didn't feel like I could even speak." She said Diddy would occasionally call things off when they went too far, but only if he was bored or annoyed, not because he cared. Cassie then confessed that her jealousy and fear of abandonment kept her in this cycle. "He told me if I left, no one would believe me, and I believed him." The courtroom sat in silence, only the court reporters typing, echoing in the chamber. Everyone was waiting to see what the defense would say next, but nothing could undo what had just been said. As the prosecution pressed forward, they asked Cassie to elaborate on what these dark room sessions looked like from start to finish. What followed was a meticulously detailed explanation that made it clear these weren't random acts of abuse. These were events Diddy planned like he was producing a high-budget horror film. According to Cassie, the rooms were always prepared in advance. He had people whose job it was to set the mood, she said. The lighting, the furniture arrangement, the oils, everything was placed exactly how he wanted. Cassie claimed that Diddy employed a small inner circle of staff whose only role was to maintain the ambiance of these rooms. She recalled once walking into one of the rooms at his Miami mansion and finding a man adjusting a spotlight above a velvet sofa. The man allegedly told her he wants the shadows to hit just right. She said there were always cameras, some obvious, some hidden. "At one point, I stopped trying to count them," she testified. He had every angle covered. Drugs played a major role. According to Cassie, she was often handed mystery pills that Diddy claimed would help you feel it better. She was never told what they were. Prosecutors showed text messages between Cassie and one of Diddy's assistants, where she asked what a specific pill was, and the assistant simply replied, "Don't worry about it." Puff says, "Take it." Cassie said these substances blurred her sense of time and memory, leaving her disoriented for hours after the sessions. Even more disturbing were the props. Cassie claimed Diddy had a whole room full of toys and devices, some of which required instructions. One of the items she described was a leather-bound contraption she didn't even know how to use. He brought someone in to demonstrate it. She said that someone, she alleges, was a male sex worker who Diddy paid handsomely to train Cassie on how to use it. And then came the rituals. Cassie testified that on certain dates, such as full moons or Diddy's birthday, he would host elaborate spiritual freak-offs, as he allegedly called them. She claimed he would burn incense, play tribal music, and recite phrases he said came from ancient African texts. He said it was about power, Cassie said. He said I was helping him channel something bigger than himself. Whether it was a twisted joke or something more sinister, it left everyone in the courtroom stunned. After days of emotional testimony, the prosecution shifted their focus toward Diddy's alleged physical abuse. Cassie was asked if the darkroom sessions ever turned violent. Her reply, yes, often. She said the violence wasn't spontaneous. It was a calculated extension of Diddy's control. If I broke character, he'd snap, she told the jury. If I cried, if I hesitated, he'd grab me. She described one night when she refused to engage with a male escort, stating she wasn't in the mood. Diddy allegedly grabbed her by the arm, dragged her into the room, and slammed the door behind them. He screamed at me for ruining his night, she said. Then he pushed me so hard, I fell backward onto a metal frame. I still have the scar. Prosecutors showed the jury a photograph of the scar taken by a doctor years later. Cassie claimed this wasn't an isolated incident. She detailed another night in which Diddy became enraged when she tried to leave during a session. I got up. I told him I needed air. He blocked the door, she said. He slapped me, not in a rage, calmly, like he was correcting a child. She said she spent the rest of that night crying in the bathroom while he finished the session without her. The courtroom listened in disbelief as she described how staff were present during some of these moments. One assistant, she alleged, simply handed her a glass of water afterward and whispered, "You're okay. You're doing great," she said. I think that was the worst part, that nobody even acted like it was wrong. Cassie's attorneys then played a voicemail Diddy allegedly left her just hours after one of these incidents. In the message, he sounded emotional, saying things like, "You know I love you. You make me do crazy things." Prosecutors said this message was part of a pattern. Emotional abuse, layered on top of physical dominance. It was like he broke me down and then tried to build me back up, Cassie said. Perhaps the most haunting revelation came near the end of this portion of her testimony. I didn't think of it as abuse at the time. I thought of it as love. That single sentence hung in the air like a fog. The courtroom sat frozen, unable to look away. If Cassie's testimony was explosive, the appearance of the male escort known only as D.A. was an earthquake. Described as a well-built man in his 30s, wearing a gray suit and dark sunglasses, he took the stand with a calm demeanor that starkly contrasted the tension in the courtroom. But what he said next added layers of complexity to an already disturbing case. D.A. confirmed that he had participated in numerous sessions with Cassie and Diddy, but he claimed that Cassie was the one who contacted him directly each time. She would book me under a fake name. Sometimes she'd say it was for her birthday. Sometimes she'd say it was just for fun. He described Diddy as quiet during the sessions, saying he mostly just sat in the corner and watched. When asked about the incident where he allegedly urinated on Cassie, D.A. stunned the room. "Cassie asked me to," he said. "It wasn't Diddy's idea." The prosecution seemed momentarily thrown off, then pivoted, asking about the atmosphere. D.A. admitted, "Yeah, it was weird, very controlled. He had rules. No speaking unless he asked questions, no touching him, and everything had to be on camera." Though his testimony undermined some parts of Cassie's narrative, D.A. did corroborate others. He recalled a night when Cassie emerged from a room with a bruise bruised arm and teary eyes. "She didn't say what happened, but I knew something was off," he said. Later, he described seeing Diddy shove her against a wall during a heated argument. "That wasn't a freak-off. That was abuse." The cross-examination revealed more. D.A. had been paid handsomely for his work, often thousands of dollars in cash, but he also confessed that he stopped answering Cassie's calls after one particularly violent night where he allegedly saw Diddy throw a bottle across the room. "I didn't want to be around that," he said. So while D.A. complicated the prosecution's case, he also confirmed key elements: that Diddy was obsessed with control, that there were recordings, and that violence was a part of the equation. One juror was seen holding back tears as he stepped down from the witness stand. The trial took a turn no one was prepared for when prosecutors played the now infamous 2016 Intercontinental Hotel surveillance footage. The courtroom fell completely silent. No dramatic music, no voiceover, just raw, unfiltered violence. The video showed Diddy stalking Cassie through a hallway, grabbing her by the back of her head and throwing her to the ground. After a brief moment, he walked away, only to turn back and kick her again as she lay motionless. It wasn't a scuffle. It was a calculated, cold attack, and it was all caught on camera. As the footage played, Cassie sat stone-faced, while Diddy, already visibly tense, began to twitch and fidget in his seat. His defense team knew this was a devastating blow. The prosecution paused the video multiple times to zoom in on key moments: the way Cassie's body hit the floor, the emotionless expression on Diddy's face, the distance between the two, making it clear this wasn't a fight. This was an ambush. Prosecutors then introduced Israel Flores, the hotel security guard who responded to the scene. Now an LAPD officer, Flores testified that he saw Cassie in a dazed state after the attack and had to intervene when Diddy refused to let her leave. "She was crying," he said. "She kept saying, 'I just want to go.'" He added that Cassie had a visible bruise under her eye, though this detail was curiously missing from his 2016 incident report, something the defense would later pounce on. Diddy's attorney tried to dismiss the footage as an isolated outburst, arguing that even if it looked bad, it didn't prove racketeering or trafficking. But prosecutors countered with chilling precision. They laid out a timeline of incidents, showing this wasn't isolated, this was a pattern. They connected the hallway assault to the darkroom sessions, arguing that Diddy's rage always boiled over when he couldn't control Cassie's behavior. To support this, they brought in a digital forensics expert who showed that Diddy had deleted multiple videos from his personal cloud storage just days after the Cassie assault. Some of those files were partially recovered, and while they weren't played in court, they were entered as evidence with descriptions like Session Room 3 and Cassie Freakoff 2. What started as a chilling account of private abuse was now backed up by video evidence, forensic data, and real-time reactions from a man visibly falling apart in court. When the footage ended, the courtroom was stunned. Even jurors who had remained expressionless throughout the trial now looked shaken. If Cassie's testimony was the spark and the surveillance video the explosion, what followed was the aftershock, a parade of new witnesses who shattered the illusion of isolation. One by one, they took the stand. Some were former assistants, others were security staff, and one was a former bad boy records artist whose career had mysteriously disappeared after she disrespected Puff, as she put it. Each told a piece of the same haunting story. One assistant testified that she had to replenish baby oil and lubricant orders weekly, sometimes in bulk quantities. "I wasn't allowed to ask questions," she said. "I just followed orders." He said everything had to be perfect. Another assistant testified that she once walked in on Cassie sobbing in a dark room, alone, after an event. "She looked like a ghost," she said. She whispered, "Please don't tell him I'm crying." But the most jaw-dropping moment came from a woman named Trisha Weller, who hadn't been named in any lawsuits prior to this trial. Trisha claimed she attended a party at Diddy's house in 2017 under the impression that it was a private dinner for creatives. "Within 45 minutes, I was in a room with 3 men I didn't know, one of whom was filming, she said. When I tried to leave, the door was locked. She said she was later paid $7,000 through a shell company linked to Diddy's event staff. She never told anyone until now. I saw Cassie in the hallway afterward, Trisha said. She avoided my eyes, like she was used to seeing that happen. The jury was visibly shaken. One woman clutched her notepad so tightly, the paper started to tear. Diddy, meanwhile, had started scribbling furiously on a legal pad, his once cocky demeanor now fully collapsed. Gone was the billionaire mogul who hosted parties in white linen and sunglasses. In his place was a sweating, panicked man in a suit 2 sizes too big. The prosecution also introduced testimony from a former event videographer who claimed to have destroyed over 300 hours of footage at Diddy's request. He told me, "Burn it. It's not for the public. It's for God's eyes only," the man said. The phrase stunned the room and seemed to hint at something darker, ritualistic, maybe even spiritual in Diddy's mind. With each witness, the walls closed in further. This wasn't just about Cassie anymore. It was about a decades-long system, a machine Diddy allegedly built to feed his need for control, domination, and humiliation. As the trial entered its final week, Diddy's team appeared exhausted, deflated, and scrambling. Meanwhile, Diddy himself, once the center of every room he entered, was now isolated even within the courtroom, shivering under a blazer, scribbling notes, rarely making eye contact with anyone except his attorneys. The courtroom sketch artists captured a haunting image. Diddy, with his hands over his ears, his mouth open in a silent scream as prosecutors recited Cassie's darkest claims. It became the trial's defining moment. He looked like a man seeing his own funeral, one reporter posted online. And maybe he was. In a final effort to regain control, the defense filed a motion to suppress certain testimonies and remove some graphic evidence from the jury's deliberation, but the judge denied it, stating, "The severity of these allegations necessitates complete transparency." Diddy's reaction? He slumped forward, whispering something to his attorney before putting his head in his hand. The prosecution delivered its closing argument with piercing clarity. "This is not about bad choices. This is about premeditated trauma, about building a personal empire on the backs of broken people." They pointed to a timeline showing how, every time a new accusation arose over the years, Diddy either paid it off, silenced it, or buried it, until now. Even more damning was a never-before-seen financial ledger, leaked by a whistleblower within Diddy's own team, detailing monthly payments labeled only as care, silence, and loyalty. The amounts ranged from $2,500 to over $80,000. When asked about it, Diddy reportedly looked down and said nothing. Cassie's team rested their case by playing one final piece of audio, a voice memo from 2015 where Diddy is heard saying, "People think they can leave me. Nobody leaves me." The jury listened in stunned silence. The man who once said, "Can't stop, won't stop," had officially hit a wall. His name stripped from his alma mater, his honorary doctorate revoked, his key to New York rescinded, and now potentially facing life in federal prison. Diddy's entire world, built on platinum records, endorsements, Ciroc deals, and bravado, was crumbling. And yet, the trial may not even be over. With over 100 alleged victims waiting to testify, the case against Diddy could expand into a massive RICO-level criminal enterprise investigation, implicating not just Diddy, but others who enabled him for decades. One thing is certain: the truth Cassie laid bare in that courtroom won't be forgotten.